Hey Bulls and Bears, welcome back. It is Wednesday, July 8th, 2020. I apologize about the slowdown in the volume of videos I put out. I missed a day here, a day there the last few days. Usually I'm 6 out of 7 days a week. Today we're going to talk about our main topic, landlords panic as renters miss mortgage payments in massive numbers. Now before we get started, thank you everybody for getting us to 58,000 subs. So let's get right into it. Recent Bloomberg article, New York City rental market pushed to breaking point by tenant debts. We have these tenants that are not paying their rent. Landlords are still having to pay their taxes. There's no tax moratorium being put in place as reported by this article. And we talked about this actually several months ago. We said, what's going to happen when you're not allowed to evict people when they don't pay their rents? What are the landlords going to do? Because they have carrying costs, they have taxes, many of them pay the utilities for their tenants, the trash bill and so forth. Many of them have HOA or community fees that they have to pay. Many of them have mortgages, right? So when you stop tenants or allow tenants to not pay their rents, it's not just that simple. There's other impacts. Now it's going up to the landlords, and let's read some information out of this article here. And keep in mind, this is New York, so we're going to be talking about very high rents. Excerpt out of this article, 25-year-old Jessica Lee and her husband needed 4 roommates to afford their $4,000 a month 4-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn's hip Bedford neighborhood. And that's considered a bargain for the Big Apple. Now her husband and everyone else in the house have all lost their restaurant jobs, and she's the only one still working. Let's pause right there. So all these people working at restaurants, except for the main person here, Jessica, still with the income, $4,000 a month, and that's a bargain for Brooklyn. So this is going to be ground zero, these big cities with big prices, and you know where jobs are mostly concentrated in the large metropolitan areas. So you see the housing prices, the rent prices get pushed up to exorbitant levels in these metropolitan areas, and especially New York. Well, now the fallout happens and landlords are in big trouble. Let's talk about this. First of all, in New York, the prices are so high that 2/3 of New Yorkers have to rent their homes. So nationwide, the home ownership rate's about 50%, but when you look at higher priced areas, more people are forced into renting. So you have only about 30% of people in New York City owning their homes. And listen to this. About 1/4 of the city's apartment renters haven't paid rent since March. So we're over 4 months now without rent for these unit owners, these building owners. And it says here, some landlords with their own bills to pay are running out of savings. So the city is bracing for hundreds of millions of dollars in delinquent property tax payments. And we told you it's not this simple. It's not just as simple as giving one person forgiveness. In this case, the tenants don't have to pay their rents. It's going all the way up to the city budgets. And we already know that the city of New York is financially strapped. We know that states are financially strapped, including New York State's, with all their bloated pension programs for all their employees. So it's affecting landlords. It's now affecting cities because of tax revenues. And this is a new state law that prohibits evictions of tenants who face financial hardships while any social distancing rules are in effect. And you know as well as I know, this is going to lead to an absolute economic disaster. You're going to have cities asking for bailouts, states asking for bailouts, homeowners, landlords asking for bailouts. And we already know that the Fed has stepped up their intervention in buying corporate bonds now. They've nearly doubled their balance sheet here just in the past less than a year. The Fed never unwound their balance sheet from the financial crisis 12 years ago now, right? So this economy is just a ticking time bomb. All they're doing is trying to extend the fuse or slow down the burning of the fuse until this entire system collapses. So without intervention, we're going to see possibly millions of landlords losing their properties. And many landlords that are corporations, I'm going to guess that they're going to be seeing bailouts coming their way. And who knows, the Fed may already be buying bonds of some of these corporations that are currently involved in the rental business, in the home ownership and rental business. Right? And this story here, I think, just represents a preview of what's likely to happen nationwide. Now, it's happening, of course, in New York City and in Brooklyn on a larger scale because of the high prices. But when people have no income, it doesn't matter if their rent's $4,000 a month or $1,000 a month or $500 a month. No income is no income. And when the government checks stop, when the extended unemployment benefits stop, when the stimulus checks stop being sent out, you're going to see a nationwide financial crisis be exposed. Now, there already is a financial crisis. The thing about it is many people don't realize it yet because there's so much support being pumped into the markets and out to the consumers who, even before the shutdown, even before the pandemic crisis and the pandemic recession, even before that, 70% of Americans were already living paycheck to paycheck. So if anyone tells you that this shutdown was the sole cause of the recession, I think most of you know by now that this was going to happen no matter what. But now they've got the convenience of blaming this entire failed economic system on the shutdown. Now, we know that when government gets involved, there's typically a lot of waste, a lot of failed policies, a lot of misappropriation of funds, and a lot of times the funds just go missing. And just to piggyback on a topic that we touched on in our previous videos, which was called Bailouts for the Mega Rich, where we saw companies owned by Kanye West, the Kardashians, and more getting these PPP, small business bailouts, the Paycheck Protection Program, loans. A recent CNBC article right here, the billionaires and country clubs that received small business loans from the government. So once again, we're seeing the people that need the least help getting the most help. And the consumers, who are supposed to be the backbone of the economy, consumers and small business, they have to wait months and months and months while Congress, who happens to be on vacation right now, while Congress fights against the other side to get another stimulus check sent out to the people. And it says again out of this article, billionaires, country clubs, private jet companies, Kanye West, all received millions in government funding under the Paycheck Protection Program. See, when you leave the economy to a free market where the government doesn't get involved, then you're going to see the most efficient economic system. You're going to see less waste. When the government gets involved, it's like trying to cut a sandwich in half using a sledgehammer. Right? There's going to be a lot of waste, a lot more damage than is meant to happen. And some people would argue that there's a more dark, sinister plan, behind all this. But we do know that the government is one of the most wasteful ways to run an economic system. Now, I continue to believe that after the majority of the population really feels the impacts of this economic collapse, I think we're going to see some sort of mass awakening, and a lot of people are going to be mad about the bankers and the politicians that allowed this to get this bad. And what we like to do here is point at other countries that have already fallen under an economic collapse and show you what's happening in these other countries. Today, again, let's talk about Lebanon. In Lebanon, they've seen massive devaluation of their currency. They've seen widespread starvation, people without water, people without utilities, and people that can't even get access to their money in the bank because the banks have shut down. Let's take a look at this recent Financial Times article here. And the population of Lebanon under a wide scale is furious at the bankers. Headline here, Lebanon's once lauded bankers under fire as economic crisis deepens. Bank branches are barricaded and executives are anxious not to be seen in public. So the bankers, the heads and executives of these banks, they're afraid to show their faces in public because they might not survive, because the population has realized what's been done to them, and these people are trying to go get money out of the bank. And we reported on it here, there were lines down the block around the street to get into the bank. And you know as well as I know that even here in the U.S., the banks do not have enough physical cash to hand out if everyone went to withdraw their cash. Why? Because we have a fractional reserve fiat banking system, fiat money banking system. And this is worldwide. So while some of you may be saying, well, that's Lebanon, JJ, what do you mean? Well, yes, each country is different. We have different cultures, There's a lot of differences in each country from country to country, of course, but look at the similarities. Look at the banking system. It's all fiat currency. It's all fractional reserve banking. You have to realize that what happens in other countries can very easily happen here. It's just a matter of time. The difference is the U.S., we've had the luxury of having the world's reserve currency, and the Fed, who has, out of their own mouths, pledged to support the markets and to support this economy with unlimited bailouts, with unlimited funds. And that's not me saying that. That's the Fed actually said that. They actually quoted unlimited backing of these markets, of this economy. All right, more into this article here. Lebanon went from being a very wealthy country, a country that was looked at and lauded as being very successful, to, in a very short amount of time, having this financial crisis and big problems and a lot of anger towards the bankers. So by the middle of 2019, combined assets in Lebanon had increased 83% in 8 years to 250 billion, equal to roughly 5 times the country's economic output. And at some of the banks in this country, some of the branches boasted sparkling glass facades and fancy atriums, and bankers entertained clients with cigars and fine dining in the city's smartest restaurants. Now, less than a year later, branches are barricaded with thick metal plates to protect from protesters, firebombs, and those same executives are anxious not to be seen in public. Last month, fires were started outside the central bank's office in northern city of Tripoli, while across Beirut, down with the rule of the bank, is sprayed on the walls. So in the U.S., it's very similar, except we're seeing the social unrest, the riots happening for different reasons. But can you imagine how much more widespread the damage and the protests and the anger is going to be in the United States once people realize they've been fleeced by this fractional reserve fiat money banking system? Right now there's a lot of things happening in the U.S. to prop up the system, to keep people divided, and to keep people's attention off of the failed economic system, and to keep people unaware of the failed financial system. And of course the virus shutdown, the virus recession plays a huge part in that. But one of the quotes that I've put out here a few times on this channel is from Henry Ford. I'd like to say it again here. Quote, "It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning," unquote. All right, so now you know why we're so distracted by so many different unimportant topics and events. Reality shows, sports, entertainment, left versus right name-calling, division. Meanwhile, the same people that are fighting against each other and pretending to be enemies, well, the people at the top of both of those systems are laughing all the way to the bank. They have private jets, private islands, getaway bunkers, survival plans, while the bottom 99% are down here pointing the finger at each other over whose politician is going to be the best one to continue this massive deception. Okay, it's about all for today. One quick note. In our previous video, I talked about how the penny is worth more now melted versus the actual value of the penny, which is 1 cent. Now, some of you that called me out on this said the penny is not made out of copper. You're partially correct, but here it is right here. 1982 to present, the penny is copper plated, but it's actually zinc making up most of the penny. So thank you very much for keeping me on my toes. I guess that takes our accuracy percentage rating from 99.9 to maybe 99.8. But you were only partially correct if you said there was no copper in the penny. So thanks everybody for watching. Come back for more economic news, financial reporting, with a lot of new content coming out every week. Hope everyone stays well, stay prepared, stay awake to the financial fakery, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.